everybody, welcome! Today's my birthday, woohoo! I am always so happy when I make it here. Honestly, I always love it. I love it that I got here. I never thought I was gonna get that far. And I don't know if some of you feel like that too. People seem to think that they have to be depressed on their birthday. I think it's an awesome time, no matter which age you are. And you know where I learned this? By I think some 90-year-old man or woman who was so proud that they got there. And then I thought that's actually a really good mindset. Because we're getting older anyway, right? We could just as well be proud that we got there. Not everybody does. So let's enjoy it. So anyway, and given that it is my birthday, there's this transformation thing that I did that I do every year, basically, to kind of take stock at where I am and why I got there and where I want to go from there. And it's actually a very interesting bit. And I think I've never ever really talked about this before, although I've been doing this probably for over a decade now. So it usually starts sometime in December, and nowadays it actually starts with Date with Destiny. Whether I actually go to the event or not, I always have a bit of at least a weekend, but if I have more time, a little bit more time to actually go into some of the inner work and some of the inner things that may still be holding me back and things that I don't really know why they're there. And I found it incredibly helpful this year because I busted a few things that have been holding me back for literally years now, and maybe even decades. So that was wonderful, and I did feel it because suddenly I started doing stuff left, right, and center. I didn't even have to work on it anymore, while before it was just such hard work all the time. It doesn't mean that all the problems went away or that all the things that I wanted to change actually magically all changed, but suddenly there was much more energy there. So there is sometimes, if you knock at it long enough, as Tony Robbins says, the domino will fall, and that one fell for me. So that was a really good thing, but I usually do this for the entire period, over the Christmas period, over New Year's Eve, and it stops today, which is my birthday, and then I usually have a set point and know what I want to do for the next year, and what vehicles I want to use, what I want to work on. So just to take you a little bit through the process, because not everybody here on this show is in personal development, and those of you who are, you probably know everything that I'm going to be telling you, but I'll just put my little slant on it. So, you start out with what got you here won't get you there. So that is something that you hear in business as well, right? If you were somebody who's at vice president level or at a mid manager level, and you want to go into the C-suite, you want to go into senior management, then you have to do different things, right? That's where I first heard it. I think it was a strategic management course that I did at one of the banks. And how do you get usually to a different outcome? You have a vision, and then based on the vision, which we dealt with yesterday, you have different goals that you want to achieve. There's different people who deal with that much more in depth than I do. I just looked at a sales presentation from John Strelacki, I think his name is. It's the first time I saw him. He's got 5 for life. Tony Robbins has 7 different areas where he looks at. And then I found a process that is really, really important, which Tony Robbins also says you always need to know the why. And I found that incredibly important. And there's a process called 7 layers deep, which we go into, I think, in one of the courses. I can't remember which one it was anymore because we are allowed to share it. This is a technique that Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi use, which is very, very revealing about why you want to do things. Because the more questions you ask, and I'm not going to go full deep into this particular technique right now, but the more questions you ask, the more you realize that the reason you want something isn't actually the reason you want them. It is something completely different. There's a completely different motive behind it. And once you discover the motive, you actually realize that either you already have it, or there's a completely different way that you could get it, which is possible, while the way you're trying to get it is actually not possible, or you're deeply depressed because you can't get there. So there are different things, but those are kind of as a recap. There are inner tools that you need. Those would be the inner tools if you want to go forward, and there's outer skills that you probably need as well if you want to go somewhere else. So all kinds of different things that you can learn in personal development from some of them from me, a lot of them from other people, which I really found very, very helpful, because people always think of personal development, or a lot of people think of personal development as kind of a rah-rah thing. And in some cases that may be the case, but the people that I will talk to you about will be people who really, really have helped me. The only person I really don't know is John Strackley. I just saw that presentation just now, but he also speaks about the 5 goals, right? And that's not that much different. Now, once you have all that, you can decide what you want to do, and the problem is just a lot of times if you want to change, and I just found that out yet again, is you find all these people who don't want you to change, right? So how do you deal with that? Because sometimes it's not that easy, especially if it's people close to you or people who you may not have that much time with anymore, right? So questions to ask are, is it just your perception that they're against the change? Is it maybe something that you want them to be against the change so you don't have to do it because you're afraid of it, or it's inconvenient for you, or you have to do a lot of work? Is it a manifestation of your own resistance, that it is actually something that they're doing, but it is in a response to something that you're doing that you're not aware of? Or is it within them? Which means it's not really, you can influence them, but you can't control them, and it's also not necessarily your responsibility, right? Sometimes it may be because it is an area that they haven't mastered, and they are kind of in competition with you. So if you master it, you make them feel bad in a way. Or they know that they shouldn't be doing this, but then if they see you do it, then they kind of get permission or give themselves permission to do it. But if you don't do it, then they feel the restriction themselves. Like, for example, one of the things that I realized, which I was never aware of before, because in the environment that I was in before, there wasn't that much drinking, really. I was working in investment banks in London, but during the workday, I mean, it was 16 hours at work. I wasn't in sales, so I wasn't going out to sales meetings and drinking afterwards. So there wasn't a pressure, really, usually, to be drinking something. But when I moved into this area, my God, people get really upset if you don't drink with them. It's family, it's people at work, and, at like 11 o'clock in the morning. And you wonder, why is it so important to them that you start drinking with them, that you don't stop, that you don't get healthy? And these are some of the reasons. And sometimes if people are really old, it may be, it may be the armchair test for them, where they wonder if, when I was 50 or 55 or 60, if I had stopped then, maybe I wouldn't be in the situation that I'm in now. And it's probably the truth. So you're just pushing them onto something that is really uncomfortable. And people who are like themselves. I know from family members who pushed other people into drinking again, for example, simply because they said, otherwise we don't have anything in common anymore. They said, I will divorce you if you stop drinking. Things like that, and then the woman started drinking again. And that is a really unfortunate thing, especially if it has health consequences later. So what do you do? Is your choice really to either change and lose them, or to not change and maybe get the result that you see other people getting right now that you really don't want to have, and also cutting out your entire mission, maybe? I mean, I'm not just talking about alcohol, for example, or stopping smoking, or just getting healthy. It could be anything, any change you want to make, which changes something that is currently in your way. It may just be a mindset thing, right? Or is there a third choice? If this is something that could make or break your mission, or all the good you could do in the world, even if you lose a few people, is it maybe worth it, even if they're close to you? Or can you really save people by swimming in the mud with them? If somebody's drowning, what do? Do you stay on the boat and throw them something that they can hold on to, that you can get them into the boat again? Or do you just jump outside and drown with them? Does it really help people if you drown in the mud together? They may feel less alone, but there are so many other people you may have saved if you hadn't been in the mud. And you may drown some other people with you who would not have drowned because they saw you as a role model. And if people, now do you also do you want to fuel an addiction to drama or to addiction itself? You know, is it maybe the pain that people will feel about you going away and them having the perception that they don't have a connection with you anymore that will cause them to change, or will cause them to maybe learn the last lesson that they should have learned in their lives, so that the next life, if we are going with Indian philosophy, isn't going to be like this. That they will get the lesson at the end of their life, and next life they will not do it again. You know, so there are different questions you have to ask yourself. Also, is it really your responsibility if they don't want to make that step right now? Or is it really for you to judge that they have to make that step right now? Even if you think that is the right thing for them, maybe it isn't. Maybe there's a reason that they're where they are right now, right? Sometimes it can be difficult if somebody close to you, but if they love you, they will love you even when you get healthier, even if you start exercising, stop drinking, stop smoking, or start a new extra career. And then the other thing to ask yourself as well is, how radical does your transformation have to be? And how should it manifest? It should, in quite a lot of cases, probably be quite radical, so that you're not in the step in between, that you're not in the gray, that you're kind of sliding back again. But what does burning the boats mean, for example? Does it mean quitting the job right now, so you don't have another income unless you are good in the new thing that you want to do, although you have no skills yet? Or does it mean quitting to have excuses to start implementing or working on the skills that you need for that job, that you know you want to do in the future because it supports your mission? Another thing is to question whether it is really the job itself that is so bad, or maybe it's just one thing in there that you can't deal with because you don't have the inner tools yet. And that clouds your entire perception over the entire thing. You know, sometimes when you get a little bit of distance, you can see that could be the case because you got drowned in the mud of that. Or maybe I actually found that I probably have been living my mission for quite a long time. I mean, literally decades already. I just wasn't aware of it. The most pain I think I've had, or the most suffering I've had in my life, was because I kept thinking, what the F am I doing here? Why am I doing this? Why am I here again? And now I'm moving again, and now I'm doing that, and now, and I am now starting to see a picture of why that probably was and what it's probably leading to. And a lot of the moves that I made, for example, from, after I did my law degree in Germany, I did the last part in America, and then, just switched to being an actress. And I thought at the time, why on earth am I doing this? I mean, I'm totally crazy. Nobody in our families is in the arts and everything. Turns out most of them are in the arts. They just never told me because they didn't want me to get that idea. But apart from that, it was actually something that brought me that I really needed, but I wasn't aware of it. But something inside told me, okay, you need to do this right now because otherwise you can't go on. So maybe this is something that you've been doing and you're not aware of it. And maybe one of the jobs that you thought, you really needed to get let go of, maybe it was just the wrong job because you did it for the wrong reason. Maybe now there's a reason there. Maybe it is actually furthering your mission without you actually realizing it. Maybe there's a reason there now why it would be a good idea to keep it right now while you're developing the new thing. Because maybe it is the way to finance all that money that you need for the training and for the, a lot of times you need a sort of entrance fee to get onto, into certain jobs. Like if you want to speak on certain stages, for example, they don't let you on there unless you do a certain course with them, right? Well, and if you don't have that money, you're not going to get there. So you're still going to be just dreaming about it. So there are a lot of different things to consider. Sometimes it may simply be that you just needed a different structure in that kind of job. It may still be just a transitional job, but if you get more referral sources, for example. It may be just a really good transition to get you somewhere else. And it may have been a good thing to get out of it for a while, just to have a walkabout, to find yourself and to find out what you really want to do. So there are different ways of looking at things, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find it, but if you look for it, it certainly won't be boring. I can tell you that. It's going to be an interesting life. And if I look back on the few decades that I have now, it's been certainly a very interesting life. I'm not necessarily where I want to be, but then you never are, right? There's always the next thing. But there have been, because I've been going on to this journey, there have been a few things that I found on the journey that were absolutely fascinating and that I didn't know were out there, that I really had no idea. And sometimes, as I said, the thing that you're really going for is something within the thing that you think the right vehicle is. Sometimes you just see the vehicle, but the vehicle is actually not the thing that is going to get you further. It is what you think you can get through the vehicle. And I've started seeing that in a few things. So this is a really interesting journey. So for you, basically, if you want to do this kind of process, think about what the next vehicle is for the next year. If you are still in the same vehicle that you've been in for the last 20 or 30 years, take a look how long that vehicle is going to be there. Do you still want to do this? Are you really passionate about it? Are there other vehicles that you want to try? Can you try them on the side? What skills do you need in order to get in there? What is your why? And that is the most important thing. Why do you want to do this? Is it just for you, or is it because you actually have a mission, you want to help somebody else? Hopefully, if you are in this group, you will want to help the environment, you will want to help other species as well as humans. Right? So if we find this, there are so many interesting things out there. It's just important to keep the focus up and not down. Because there's also a lot of scary things there, and if we focus on them, then we get drawn into them. So it is really important to focus up. So where does your focus need to remain for the next year, and how do you make sure that it stays there? This was Petra Lohmeyer from Nevelle, and I wish you a very, very beautiful next week. I see you tomorrow. Live long and prosper, or live strong and prosper.